I'm Nathan. I'm 34. My wife's name is Jenna. She's 32. We've been married 6 years. A year ago, I gave her a spa. And tonight, I caught her using it to cheat on me. It wasn't even subtle. I pulled into the empty lot and saw her car, parked by the side entrance like it always was. The front windows were dark, but farther back, a sliver of soft amber light leaked out from the hallway. I killed my headlights. Sat there for a second, hands gripping the steering wheel hard enough to make my knuckles ache. Maybe she was working late. Maybe she was doing inventory, paperwork, cleaning. That's what I told myself as I got out, even though some deeper part of me already knew none of that was true. The staff and trans stuck like it always did. Warped frame, loose latch, the same flaw I'd meant to fix but never got around to. I pushed harder, felt it give, and slipped inside. The air hit me right away, heavy with lavender oil and something sweeter underneath. Wine? Sweat? Something that didn't belong there. I heard it before I saw it. A laugh, low and quick, the kind that belongs to private moments, not business hours. Then a thump, muffled voices. No words I could make out. My heart was pounding so loud I thought they might hear it through the walls. I moved down the hall toward room 3, her room. Always her room. The door was half closed, the light inside a low pulse from a single salt lamp in the corner. I could see movement, just shadows at first, then more. I looked through the crack. Jenna was on the massage table, her dress pushed up around her waist, her legs tangled around him to moss. Shirtless, hands on her skin like he owned her, his head bent low over her, their bodies moving in rhythm like this wasn't the first time, like they didn't even think to hide it anymore. The worst part was her face. Relaxed, happy, smiling the way she used to smile at me years ago, before the distance crept in, before the spa, before tonight. I stood there like an idiot, like a man who didn't know how his own life had been hollowed out while he was busy working overtime to fund it all. And then she looked up, her eyes locked on mine across the small room. For one heartbeat, everything froze, her breath, his hands, the air between us. She didn't scream. She didn't pull away. She just stared. And in her face, I didn't see shock or fear. I saw guilt and something colder, relief, like she'd been waiting to be caught. She didn't say anything. Neither did he. Tomas backed up a step like he was expecting me to lunge at him. I didn't. I just stood there, hands shaking at my sides, looking at the two of them like they were strangers. I didn't recognize her anymore, the way her hair stuck to her forehead, the way her hand tightened the sheet around her body like she suddenly remembered modesty. All I could hear was the low hum of the salt lamp and the thick, ugly beat of my own heart in my ears. She opened her mouth once like she might say my name, but nothing came out. I turned around and walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't say a word. I walked past the front desk Jen had decorated with fairy lights last Christmas. Past the couch where I waited the night of her grand opening, beaming like an idiot while she shook hands with clients. Out into the parking lot that smelled like wet asphalt and sour air from the dumpster behind the building. I sat in my truck with the engine off, fists curled so tight around the steering wheel my palms ached. Inside the spa, nothing moved. No one came running after me. I stayed there in the dark for a long time, long enough for the windows to fog, long enough for my mind to start peeling itself apart. I thought about all the overtime I pulled to help fund the spa. Thought about the nights she stayed late, claiming inventory was off or a supplier was running behind. Thought about the way she started locking her phone, how she stopped reaching for my hand when we walked together. I thought about everything at once until it drowned me. And still, nobody came out. That's when I knew how bad it really was. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't chasing me. She was letting me go. I don't remember driving home. I just remember the way my hands kept slipping on the wheel because they were sweating so badly, the way the headlights of other cars blurred into long smears of color like I was underwater. I parked crooked in the driveway and sat there, engine ticking as it cooled, not moving. Our house looked normal. Porch light on, her sandals still by the door, the little autumn wreath she bought last month swinging gently in the wind. It didn't look like a house where someone had just set fire to everything that mattered. I unlocked the door, stepped into the dark kitchen, and stood there. I could still smell her shampoo lingering from the morning. For a stupid second, I thought maybe she'd pull into the driveway, run up the steps, say it was all a mistake. But the clock above the stove kept ticking, and she didn't come. I sat down at the kitchen table, head in my hands, staring at the grain of the wood I refinished with her last summer. My mind kept flashing between images. Her on the massage table, her laughing at something he said, the soft, slow way her body leaned into his touch like it was second nature. I thought about texting her, calling her, telling her to come home, to explain, to lie to me if she had to, just so I could pretend for one more night that my life hadn't been ripped out at the seams. I didn't. I just sat there until my back ached from the way I was slumped over. I thought about all the weekends I spent building that spa, cutting trim, hauling furniture, sanding down rough edges, and how proud she looked when she showed her friends around for the first time. I thought about the way she clutched the keys when I gave them to her, like they were something sacred. Now they felt cursed. Now every nail I hammered in, every dollar I spent, every night I told her it would all be worth it. All of it felt like a betrayal I committed against myself. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the sky outside to go from black to gray. Long enough for my body to go numb. When I finally moved, it wasn't because I felt better. It was because the quiet had gotten too loud. I got up, grabbed the duffel bag I kept in the closet for gym days, and started packing without thinking. Just grabbing clothes, stuffing them in, not folding, not caring. I didn't know where I was going yet. I just knew I couldn't sit in that house another minute. Every corner of it looked different now. Every photo on the wall, every mug in the cabinet, every blanket on the couch, they all felt like pieces of a life that wasn't real anymore. By the time I zipped the bag shut, the sun was coming up. Light crawled across the floor in pale strips, catching on the scuff marks from where we dragged the new couch in last winter. I stood there, bag in hand, looking around like maybe the house would apologize if I stared long enough. It didn't, and Jenna still wasn't home. Morning came again, thin and gray through the broken blinds. I hadn't really slept. I sat on the edge of the bed with my elbows on my knees, head in my hands, feeling like the night had soaked into my bones. My body ached the way it does after you've been hit hard, but there were no bruises, no cuts to show for it, just this raw, invisible wreckage inside me. I took a shower that didn't make me feel any cleaner, pulled on the same clothes from yesterday, and sat back down. I still hadn't heard a word from her. I checked my phone twice just to be sure it hadn't glitched. Nothing. Not a missed call. Not a single apology. It was like she had already moved on, like the crash site of our life together was just debris she'd stepped over without looking back. I should have stayed away. Should have let the silence be my answer. But after a few hours of staring at the stained ceiling and listening to the heater rattle, something broke loose inside me. I needed to see it again. Not them. Not her. The spa. The place I gave her. I needed to see what she was willing to throw away. I grabbed my keys and drove back. The miles slipping under the tires like a bad idea I couldn't stop chasing. It was almost noon by the time I pulled into the lot. Sun high, clear skies, a few cars out front. The open sign flickered weakly in the window like it was as tired as I was. I sat there for a few minutes, engine running, watching through the glass. I could see her moving inside. Jenna, wiping down the counter with practiced efficiency, the same bright, polished smile she wore for customers still glued to her face like nothing was wrong. She looked good, calm, like a woman who hadn't torn open the man who rebuilt her dreams from scratch. I wondered if Tomas was in one of the rooms, maybe finishing up with a client. I wondered if he was touching someone else the way he touched her. I wondered if Jenna even cared. My stomach twisted so hard it felt like I was going to be sick. I killed the engine but didn't get out. Just sat there with my hands gripping the steering wheel, knuckles white. Every part of me screamed to storm in there, tear the place apart, shout her name so loud she couldn't pretend not to hear it. But I didn't move. I wasn't going to give her that. I wasn't going to be the broken man smashing things while she smiled behind a desk we built together. I stayed until my legs cramped from the tension, until my jaw hurt from clenching it so tight. And still, she didn't look up, didn't see me through the glass. Or maybe she did, and just kept wiping down counters like it was any other Tuesday. Eventually, I turned the key, backed out of the lot, and drove away without ever stepping inside. It was the first time I realized something even worse than betrayal. I could disappear from her life completely, and she wouldn't even flinch. The drive back to the motel was a blur. I couldn't even tell you which roads I took. Just long stretches of asphalt and the occasional flash of a billboard promising something I didn't need. My mind wasn't on the road. It was stuck in that spa, behind the glass, watching her clean countertops like she was proud of what she built. Proud of the lie. I pulled into the gravel lot of the motel too fast, the truck skidding slightly, rocks spitting out from the tires. I killed the engine but didn't move. Just sat there staring out the windshield at the cracked sidewalk, the paint-peeling doors, the lives happening in the other rooms. All strangers, all probably carrying their own ruins. I thought maybe I'd cry. The pressure behind my eyes built up so bad my vision went fuzzy, but nothing came. I used to think grief was loud, explosive, something that knocked you off your feet. Turns out, it's quieter than that. It's sitting alone in a cheap motel parking lot, realizing the person you loved is somewhere else, laughing, working, moving on like you never existed. That's what betrayal really feels like. Not the knife twisting, the forgetting, the casual way they keep breathing while you can barely remember how to. I don't know how long I stayed in the truck. Long enough for the afternoon light to start bleeding into that dirty, tired orange of evening. I thought about texting Jenna, not to ask her anything, not to accuse her, but just to see if she'd even bother replying. My hand hovered over the screen for a long time. I typed out 3 different messages and deleted all of them. What was there to say? Why him? When did you stop loving me? Was any of it real? She'd either lie or worse, tell me the truth. And I didn't know which answer would gut me more. I finally got out of the truck, grabbed the duffel bag from the passenger seat, and trudged back into the room. Same smell of bleach. Same threadbare curtains sagging from the rods. I dropped the bag by the door and sat on the bed. Didn't turn on the TV. Didn't touch my phone again. Just sat there with my face in my hands, feeling the hours bleed into each other. I must have fallen asleep at some point because the next thing I knew, it was dark outside, and the neon sign from the motel office was blinking a sickly red through the window. I stared up at the ceiling, my mind buzzing like a broken wire. I knew I couldn't stay like this. Hiding, running, waiting for her to reach out, when deep down I knew she never would. Some part of me still wanted to believe it wasn't over. That she'd call, that she'd drive up to the motel, knock on the door, cry in the parking lot, and tell me it was all a mistake. That part of me needed to die. I couldn't survive if I kept dragging it around. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I'd go back. Not to the spa. To the house. Our house. The life we built. I needed to see it one last time. Needed to stand inside the wreckage before I walked away for good. I didn't fall asleep again that night. I just laid there, stiff and cold, listening to the pipes rattle inside the walls, waiting for the morning to come. The sun came up slow, dragging a heavy gray light across the room. I hadn't slept. My body was stiff, jaw sore from grinding my teeth half the night. I rolled out of bed and stood for a long time, hands on the dresser, just looking at myself in the cracked mirror above the sink. I looked older, tired, not like someone who'd been cheated on, but someone who'd been emptied out and left half full. I ran cold water over my face, let it drip down my neck, and got dressed in the same clothes again. Didn't care. I grabbed the duffel bag, slung it over my shoulder, and headed out. The house looked exactly the same. Same porch light on a timer, same stupid potted plant she always forgot to water. The curtains were open. Her car wasn't there. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and just stood there. The quiet hit first. Not peace, absence. Her absence. It had a shape. I walked into the kitchen, dropped the bag, and leaned against the counter. Everything looked like it had before, which made it worse. Same fridge magnets, same calendar pinned to the wall with meaningless scribbles, cleaners, order toner, Tomas 3 p.m. written in her handwriting. That one stopped me. I stared at it like it might change. But there it was. His name, written in blue pen like a dentist appointment. Like he wasn't just the man I caught inside her. Like he was part of the routine. A normal fixture. I tore the calendar down and shoved it in the trash without a word. I moved through the rest of the house like I was in someone else's life. The couch still smelled faintly like her shampoo. A folded blanket rested on the back of the chair, still creased from where she used to curl up and read. One of her earrings was on the end table, small, gold, the one she only wore on days she wanted to feel pretty. I should have left it. I picked it up instead, held it between my fingers like it might explain something. It didn't. I opened the bedroom door and stood there a long time. The bed was made, sheets tucked, pillows fluffed, like she was still trying to keep the image clean, like the lie hadn't already spilled out. I walked over to my side, sat down, looked at the dent where her body used to sleep. I used to wake up and reach for her without even thinking. Now I couldn't even picture her face without seeing it from the doorway of room 3, flushed, hair messy, mouth parted from someone else's breath. On the dresser was a note, just my name. No envelope. I opened it. 2 lines. I didn't know how to face you. I'm sorry. Then her name. No explanations. No reasons. No apology beyond the bare minimum. Just that. I held the paper like it might mean something if I stared long enough. Then I folded it in half, put it in my pocket, and stood. There was nothing else to take. Nothing else I wanted. The life we built was still here. Furniture, curtains, dishes, her books lined up by color. But the part that mattered was already gone. I left the house without looking back. I drove with no destination. Just the road and that folded note in my pocket. Her handwriting kept flashing in my mind, not the words themselves, but the way they looked on the paper. Like she wrote it quickly, like she just needed to get it over with. I kept imagining her sitting at that desk, pen in hand, deciding that a sentence and a signature were enough to close the book on 6 years of marriage. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. It felt like I was past all that. Like whatever engine grief runs on had finally burned out. I wasn't empty. I was just done. I pulled off at a gas station an hour out, bought a coffee I didn't want, and stood by the pump staring into the middle distance. People moved around me, cars coming and going, a couple arguing near the vending machines. Life kept happening. That's what got me. The way the world didn't flinch. I wanted something to stop. A sign. Something that matched the weight sitting on my chest. But no one could see it. No one knew I'd been erased by the person I trusted most. I ended up back at the motel, parked under the flickering security light. I sat in the truck for a long time before going in. The room hadn't changed. Same smell, same air that never felt fresh. I dropped the keys on the table and paced for a while, not thinking, not planning, just moving because sitting felt worse. Eventually, I pulled the note out again, laid it on the bed, stared at it. 2 lines. That's what my marriage boiled down to. I didn't know how to face you. I'm sorry. I thought about the version of her I met years ago, before the spa, before Tomas, before this. I tried to remember that girl, the one who used to call me at lunch just to hear my voice, who'd fall asleep with her head on my chest during Sunday movies, who used to kiss the corner of my mouth when she said goodbye. But the memory didn't land right, like watching an old film you loved once but can't connect with anymore. It felt fake now, tainted. Like even those early days were under a shadow I didn't know was there. That night, I finally turned on the TV for background noise. Some documentary about animals in the Arctic. A narrator describing how a polar bear can wander miles through silence, through cold, with no guarantee of finding anything at the end. It made sense in a way I didn't expect. I turned off the screen before it ended. I didn't need to hear what happened to the bear. I laid on the bed staring at the ceiling, holding her note in one hand like it might turn into something else if I waited long enough. But it stayed the same. Flat, quiet, empty, just like everything else she left behind. The next morning came like the one before it, slow, colorless. I made it out of bed, but that felt like the only victory. I didn't bother with the coffee, just sat by the window with the motel curtains half open, watching the parking lot. No messages, no missed calls, no surprise knock on the door. There was a time I would have kept hoping. I'd have checked my phone every 10 minutes, looking for her name. But that part of me had gone silent. The longer she stayed away, the more the silence hardened into something solid. Not peace, not forgiveness, just fact. This is who she is now. This is what she chose. I thought about what people would say if they knew. About her. About me. I thought about how I'd explain it if I ever had to. The ones who knew her would be shocked. Jenna? No way. She adored you. The spa was your project together. But that's the part people don't understand. Betrayal doesn't come with warnings. There's no siren. No dramatic clue. Sometimes it walks in wearing the same perfume and saying the same goodnight. You don't notice it until your hands are already cut open from trying to hold on too tight. I checked out of the motel that afternoon. Didn't say much. Just handed over the key, nodded, and walked out. The sky was overcast, wind kicking up leaves across the lot. I stood by the truck for a while, engine off, thinking. I couldn't go back to the house. Not yet, but I couldn't live out of a motel room either. I texted Ethan, just said I needed a place to crash. He didn't ask questions. Said his couch was mine. The drive there was quiet. Familiar roads, empty intersections. I stopped once for gas and stood at the pump staring at my reflection in the truck window. I looked like someone else. Someone slower, heavier. I got back in and kept driving. Ethan didn't say much when I got there. Just opened the door, stepped aside, let me in. That was enough. I dropped the bag, sat on the couch, and stared at the muted TV playing some rerun I couldn't name. We didn't talk until later. He handed me a beer, sat across from me, waited. I finally said it out loud. She cheated on me. He didn't flinch, just nodded, leaned forward, and said, "Yeah, I figured." I asked him how. He said, "You look like a guy who just walked out of a fire, and you're still smoking." That night, I slept on the couch with my hoodie still on, the windows open, the night air cutting through the room. It didn't fix anything, but it was the first time I'd been able to close my eyes without seeing her face behind them. Not healed, not over it, just one night without choking on it. The next few days blurred together. Ethan went to work, left me the key, didn't ask questions. I stayed mostly on the couch, scrolling through job listings without really seeing them, picking at takeout cartons, letting hours slip past like they didn't belong to me anymore. Sometimes I'd look at my phone out of habit, thumb hovering over Jenna's name. I never called. I never texted. She didn't either. It was like we'd both agreed without speaking that we didn't exist to each other anymore. Some days that felt like mercy. Other days it felt like another knife, slow and clean. I thought a lot about the house, about what was left there, waiting. Her clothes in the closet, her shoes by the door, our bed. Every piece of it felt poison now. I imagined walking through the rooms again, seeing the couch where we curled up, the dinner table where we used to eat frozen pizza after long days, the little stupid inside jokes written in notes pinned to the fridge. It made my stomach turn. The house wasn't home anymore. It was a crime scene. Every memory taped off in yellow lines I couldn't cross without bleeding. One night, Ethan and I sat on the back porch. He didn't push, just sat there with me, 2 beers between us, the sound of distant traffic humming in the dark. After a while, he said, "You thinking about what's next?" I didn't answer right away. What was next? Selling the house? Filing papers? Trying to untangle 6 years of a life built on lies? I said, "I don't know." He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. Pain recognizes pain even if the details don't match. The truth is, I wasn't sure if I was ready to let go or if I was just too tired to hold on anymore. Around midnight, I grabbed the keys to my truck and told Ethan I needed to go somewhere. He didn't ask where. I drove through empty streets, past shuttered storefronts, through the neighborhoods where everything looked too clean, too normal. I pulled into our driveway without thinking. Her car wasn't there. That helped. I sat in the truck staring at the house for a long time. Porch light still on, curtains still drawn. It looked untouched, like it was waiting. I finally got out, walked up the steps, and unlocked the door. The air inside smelled the same, faint lavender and something deeper, something that felt stale. I didn't turn on the lights. I walked through the dark, trailing my hand along the walls, letting the memories hit as they came. The kitchen where she baked cookies that one winter. The hallway where we hung our first real picture frames. The couch where we fell asleep during movie marathons when we were still us. It hurt, but not the way it did before. The pain was duller now, blunt, like a scar forming over a deep wound. I walked into the bedroom and stood there staring at the bed. Her pillow was gone, only mine left, lopsided and lonely. I crossed the room and opened the closet. Half empty. She'd been back, taken what she wanted, left the rest hanging like a skeleton of the life we had. A few of her dresses, a jacket, a stray sandal tucked in the corner. I didn't touch any of it. I just stood there breathing in the emptiness. I realized then, she was gone long before I caught her. I just hadn't wanted to see it. I didn't stay long at the house. Maybe 20 minutes. Long enough to walk through every room once, like a man visiting a graveyard. Everything looked the same. Everything felt wrong. I found a few things I couldn't leave behind, not because they mattered anymore, but because they were mine before her. My grandfather's watch. A leather jacket I bought years before we met. A box of old photos I didn't have the heart to throw out yet. I packed them into a single cardboard box. That was all I needed. That was all that was left. I left her things where they were. I wasn't going to pack her life for her. She made her choices. She could come back and deal with the wreckage she left behind, if she even cared enough to bother. I locked the door behind me, feeling nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just the steady, gray weight of finality pressing against my ribs. Back at Ethan's place, I put the box by the bed and sat down. For the first time in days, I slept. Not well, not deep, but real sleep. The kind that comes when you're too tired to dream. When I woke up, it was afternoon. Ethan had left a note on the counter, said he had a job out of town for a few days, told me to stay as long as I needed. I poured a glass of water and sat on the back porch, staring at the trees bending in the wind. That's when I decided. I wasn't going to live in a house filled with ghosts. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for Jenna to explain something that had already been explained 100 ways without words. I was going to sell the place. Start over. Clean break. No forwarding address. I spent the afternoon calling a realtor, setting up a meeting, mechanical stuff, paperwork, lists. It didn't feel real, but it didn't feel wrong either. It just felt necessary, like resetting a broken bone. It was going to hurt either way. Might as well do it right. When I hung up, I looked around Ethan's place. Simple, messy, alive. No photos staged on mantles, no perfectly folded blankets draped for show. It was real, honest. It made me realize how much of my life with Jenna had been about keeping up appearances. Smiling at parties when we hadn't touched each other in days. Talking about future plans when she was already building a different one behind my back. Pretending we were fine because it was easier than admitting we weren't. I thought about calling her one last time, just to say it, to close the book properly, but I didn't. She made her exit when she opened the door to room 3 and let him walk through it. I wasn't going to give her a second goodbye. Some endings don't need words. Some endings are better left quiet. I spent the next few weeks tying off the loose ends of a life that didn't feel like mine anymore. Meeting with the realtor, signing papers, packing the last of what I cared about into the back of my truck. I didn't look back when I locked the house for the last time. No lingering touches on the walls, no whispered goodbyes. The memories would rot there without me. That wasn't my home anymore. It was just an empty building filled with stories I didn't want to tell. Jenna never reached out. Not once. No texts, no calls, no last-minute confessions. Maybe she thought there was nothing left to say. Maybe she knew that even if she begged, the part of me that used to love her had been buried too deep to find again. I never chased her. I never asked why. I stopped needing the answers. What good were they going to do? Nothing she said would stitch the trust back together. Some cuts don't heal. They just harden over and remind you not to get that close again. I moved into a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy. One bedroom, cracked tiles in the bathroom, a fridge that rattles at night. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No hidden doors. No secret phone calls. No sin of betrayal tucked into the sheets. Just space. Just air I could breathe without choking on it. Some nights, the silence hits me harder than others. I'll wake up thinking I heard her in the kitchen, her soft steps on the hardwood, the clink of a glass being set down. But when I open my eyes, it's just me in the dark. And that's okay. The absence doesn't scare me anymore. It feels honest. It's the closest thing to peace I've had in a long time. I don't hate her. I don't forgive her either. She's just gone. A chapter closed so tightly that even thinking about it feels like reading someone else's story. A stranger's life. Not mine. Not anymore. Sometimes, when I drive past the old part of town, I catch sight of the spa. New sign out front. Different name. Different owner. I don't slow down. I don't stare. Whatever happened inside those walls, it's not my burden to carry now. It's just another building on another street filled with other people's mistakes. I'm not healed. I don't know if I ever will be. Not completely. But I'm still here. Still breathing. Still moving forward, 1 mile at a time. And for now, that's enough.